And we are live. This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show is latenightparents.com. I have Richie V in the queue 2 times over.
Teddy Ted, look at us. We're both speaking and neither of our lips are moving.
I know. It's great. It's great. Bringing
What's
up,
going on?
seeing the value behind things are good. Things are good. Seeing the value behind doing this for, I feel like doing this for so long because we've done different iterations
Right.
of this.
We're in a good 5 years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
a good 5 years. But like I said, different iterations from a pod to the radio station to podding again to live streaming.
Yep.
And I will say big shout out to our friends that do play the podcast. 90 The Underground. Thank you. 405 The Media. I should have this stuff handy. Of course, WGBB that host our podcast on their website. And we hope to eventually get back in there when COVID is over in 2027.
Okay, 2027. That sounds about right. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to do an anniversary show in there behind the WGBB microphones. But I this platform is working well for us. All the broadcasting needs we have, and let them host it, push it out to the world. But we got to go in there at least once to say hi to Brian.
Yeah, I know. I'm feeling a certain way. We gotta go back in there and say hello to Brian to see how he's doing.
Yep.
And I will go. No, we'll eventually get this right.
You do that. I'm gonna find it because I know it's out there.
We'll eventually get this right. But a lot of things since we talked last week. I'm trying to do this once a week. The fun thing about this is being able to do pods with a bunch of people.
Right.
Where you talk a little MLB with Bucko Bruce. We talk, it's like you could talk wrestling with people. You could talk this, you could talk that. But when we bring it back to the essence of the Sunday night show. There's nothing like it. Couple of things that we won't be talking about. We won't be talking about Herschel Walker. Rich, why won't we be talking about Herschel Walker?
I don't know. Why won't we be talking about Herschel Walker? Or maybe the better question is, why would we be talking about Herschel Walker?
He is contemplating running against Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock in Georgia in 2 years.
I was waiting for you to see my face.
That's what I said. We won't be talking about him.
No, we won't be talking. No. I'm not gonna shut him down just like that. I mean, hey, politics is politics. It's not necessarily about. I'm just making an assumption because he's a football star that he has nothing and isn't aware and capable to represent people in his area. But I mean, let the voters have their say. That's all. That's all I say.
Right. I don't know, Rich. I just this stuff has been just so politicized. It's kind of just disgusting to me at this point of where they're going with this, what they're doing, the amount of people that are used as pawns. Turned off.
I mean, actually, since I'm going to actually say since the 2016 election cycle, I have, besides the obvious of saying, all right, let me do whatever I can in my very limited way to change that outcome. and that's done. Otherwise, the whole political spectrum, the whole thing, we it's we kind of need a rewrite or a re-examination. I am not at all saying get rid of democracy, because that's what makes things work. But we need to do some fine tuning, I think. So we just can't have the situations that happened over the last few years happen again.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. It just seems like everything went south 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and
Right.
things as they should be really aren't. And and that's not because of Donald Trump winning or anything else like that. It's just like it felt like when those two candidates were going up against each other, they
Hmm.
were just in the toilet.
The whole situation, that the whole thing seemed like a circus. I mean, you remember how during the primaries, how many candidates were up there? Of which, how many actually seemed like they were capable in the first place? I
Right.
mean, the whole thing just didn't seem right. But again, that's American politics, and we are still a very young country.
Yeah.
We're still
We
working things out.
it was like 2016 where all those Republican candidates were up there.
Yes,
It was like
yes,
2020 was that on steroids with all those candidates out there running and 24 people declaring, and it just got to a point where you're like, okay, enough.
right.
So I don't know if it's a rewrite or a reset,
Or,
which is basically the
or
same
just a
thing.
focusing. I mean, we can do certain things which, in my tiny little world, would make a whole lot of sense and would shut a lot of that stuff down. I mean, I'm not even looking at age. Age does not necessarily need to be a factor.
Right.
But I don't think anyone who hasn't served in a major elected position for at least a full term should be able to run for president. You at least been a senator, been a governor, been a senator, been a
Been a mayor.
representative, been a mayor of a major city, been a mayor, been elected to some public office, held at least a term, got to be at least one term, and then okay, then you can throw your hat in the bag to be president. All right, fine. That I don't think that's is that asking too much. I don't think that's asking too much.
No. So we went from someone who was never in public office to
Right,
someone that lived his whole life in public office.
right,
I'm
right.
not saying that's right either.
Agreed. Term limits. That's another one of those things that just can make sense to me.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do a couple of terms. You can always step up, but you can't step backwards. And after you've done your time, if you move all the way up to presidency, good for you. Do your two and done. And that's it. Sure, maybe you keep a few people. Each party can have a few people that, like, team players, they're franchise players. Maybe they can do 3 terms instead of just two. You got to select them, and they can do their three, and that's it if they ever stay elected. That way, you can keep some normalcy and some standards. But otherwise, 2 terms, anything, two going by.
Um, we won't be talking about WrestleMania either. It's WrestleMania today.
It was today. I was looking at some of the commercials, and I was thinking about you. I'm like, oh, I know Ted's going to be sitting on a couch, sipping an adult beverage somewhere, watching WrestleMania.
Yeah, it's a 2 night thing, 2 night special. It's
Yep.
WrestleMania. Um, you know, a socially distanced 2 night affair in Tampa, Florida. There's about 25,000 fans.
Oh, that many.
Um,
Okay, that's better
oh
than what they
yeah,
had.
yeah.
So that's good. So all right.
Well, next year is going to be in Texas, so I don't know if you saw the Texas Rangers baseball game last week for their opening day. Like 45,000 fans
That was
in the stadium.
and
It's
everyone had a mask on, right?
ah, there's no mask mandate out there.
I know they
They
dropped it. They're
removed
like, you
all
do
of that.
whatever you want. Do whatever you want. All right, let's
So
watch
it's
the
it's
numbers.
it's do what you like. is do what you like out there. So it's I don't know.
I
It's
mean, fortunately, we are getting closer and closer to a time where even shenanigans like that won't have as much of a negative impact as it would have, say, 6 months ago, right? Because at least still there are some people who have gotten vaccinated, and we're getting a control on it, and the medical community understands it better and knows how to treat it better. Um, so we can only hope that this what we see from the other side of it seems like a lack of responsibility. We can only hope that this doesn't trickle too far up and start making numbers rise too much. And it'll be all out there, and people are, all the young guys doing it are affecting their family members, not themselves. And this, any deaths, any sickness is avoidable, and there's no excuse. But whatever, I'll wear my mask.
you will wear your mask, I will wear my mask, and in Suffolk and in Nassau, as long as the numbers go down and the places that we have to deal with, as long as those numbers go down, we're okay.
Yep.
And it you hate to even sound like that, but it's like either get with it or forget it.
Right. At this point, okay. What? Okay.
It's like you don't want to do it. All right, knock yourself out.
hmm
Rich, I got an email early this morning that there was a data breach with Clubhouse. 1.3 million accounts were leaked. I looked at it and it's okay. Whenever you hear data breach, it's not good. It's bad. It's, some specific database was, hacked or hammered
Yep.
and the hackers are plundering into it. But then I thought about it. I said, Clubhouse. Okay, what's there? And
Right.
then I took a second look at it and I said, okay, 1.3 million scraped user records. What was leaked? The leaked database contained a variety of user related information from Clubhouse profiles, including user ID, name, photo URL, username, Twitter handle, Instagram handle, number of followers, number of people following the user, account creation date, invited by username profile. Is that a leak?
Well, anytime that type of information gets out and it hasn't been legally or or by process requested by someone, yeah, that's a leak. Now, granted, it doesn't sound like this leak exposes any true PII, like passwords, addresses. It's got name in there, right? So if you use your real name, which they want you to do, that's been leaked. So it's still more information in one concise package that got out there. So I'll call it a leak, but I'm not going to say that it's as big a security issue as other leaks have been.
I saw it. So, and it's funny nowadays because, you have one legitimate agency that reports it. And truthfully, I wanted to name the show Credible Sources
That would have been a good one.
because you look at situations like this and you're like, okay, is this a leak? I guess technically, yes, it's a leak if it was scraped
Right, right. But again, I guess right they make all this available through
publicly.
their API anyway.
Yes.
So I
So
guess
if
if
you log in,
someone, yeah,
Rich, if you log in to Clubhouse, I can see who invited you. I can
right,
see your Twitter handle. I can see all of this stuff is public. So Twitter, Clubhouse was pushing back, saying we weren't hacked. This is all available information.
yeah, but I still question how the information was obtained. I mean, sure, if someone through a bot or a scripting or whatever started just parsing Clubhouse through public means and so just compiling this information, sure, but unless Clubhouse makes this data publicly available, in a one in a, in a large manner, not just pulling data to pass along for advertising and tracking and things like that. Unless they do that, I would like to know how it got out there in the
Right,
first place.
right. Big shout out to Tony D and Danny Salerno. Danny, no problem. We had a great discussion with Danny and Tony a few weeks ago, and then I hopped on a stream with Tony D the other night, Rich.
Mm.
Um, so here's my question. In situations like that, is it, if you're a media agency, does it make sense for you to carry that as a leak or as a scrape or as a, hey, maybe I should reach out to the organization and ask them what their thoughts are on it?
I think you reach out. That's the responsible thing to do because, like you say, you look at it, you take a slightly deeper look at it, you see that it doesn't necessarily mean that they were hacked, or that their systems were compromised. It doesn't necessarily look that way. So it's best. The responsible thing would be to say, all right, how'd this stuff get out there? Ask them, see what the response is, see what they have to say first. But it also might mean that they need to look at how they make the information available through their proper API channels. Maybe it shouldn't be as easily accessible. Again, I don't know any of the details on their specific site system, what they're doing, how they're doing it.
Right.
So that might be more the question. But the flip side of that is when you sign up and you fill all this information in, I'm sure you're signing it away on those terms of service that yeah, we can give this information away, or they may say they don't give it away. So that's where, if they say we don't give your data away, we don't sell your data, but yet this data got made available, that's where I think you could see some sort of issue.
Rich, what's your thoughts on um, flipping to the next topic, MTA toll hikes? So there were no toll hikes last year in the middle of the
Right.
pandemic because I guess people weren't driving, or but in New York, starting today, the new toll hikes go into effect.
It has been, fortunately, so long since I had to worry about the tolls and getting around on a regular basis. Excuse me. I mean, normally we see it about every 2 years, right? I got to think
Right,
about it. So this is really a toll hike on schedule. I mean, like everywhere else, their budgets have to be hurting because, like you just said, over the last year, especially, no one's been on the roads. The roads were empty except for
right.
critical needs personnel. So they've got to get money somehow. So I mean, does anyone like a toll hike? No. If you're what are the rates going now? Let's see. If you're an Easy Pass user, it's going from 612 to 655, so it's 43 cents. And if you're one of the ones who do it by mail and doesn't have an Easy Pass, it's going from 950 to 1017, so like 67 cent up increase. I mean, sure, all that adds up, no question about it. Um, but this is kind of one of those things that it's coming, it's going to be there, and the MTA, I'm going to assume, can't afford to say, all right, we know that no one was driving last year, so we'll postpone this for another year. That doesn't make sense either. And Lord knows that they need the money to pay for maintenance because maintenance never stops.
So I'm guessing right behind this, we're going to run into something because if it's bridges and tunnels and on toll increase, I'm guessing mass transit is right around the corner.
Yeah, it will be. LIRR. Didn't they postpone one last year
I think
at
they
the
did.
beginning of this?
Well,
So we
there was no
there's
one
no
to actually
writing.
give it to.
Right.
So, Rich, Danny Salerno, one of our friends of the room and fellow New Yorker, has a question that he wants to pose to you.
I see. Do I ever see the state of New York possibly implementing a consumer privacy protection law as in the state of California? Yes. Actually, I would go farther, and I think that this is something that who's this going to fall under? FCC would look at the federal level, because we have to look at information to protection and privacy. This is not just a state by state mandate. This is not rather a state by state concern. This is something that everyone online needs to be concerned about. Data protection, accessing your data, who has access to it, how people are managing it, how they're securing their sites, securing their data, being the vendors. So these are all things. This goes beyond GDPR and things like that. Um, California always tends to be at the edge of social issues like this, because that's really what this boils down to. So yeah, I think New York would do it, but I think it actually should be something even handled at the federal level. And did I lose audio?
No, I think I lost audio.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I think I lost audio. From there, I wanted to go into America's companies are struggling to hire workers back. It risks derailing the economic recovery.
Let me pop that one. I was looking at that article as well.
I mean, as much glossing over that topic, as much as we want to talk about stimulus, and we're getting ready to go through, I think, a fourth round or a potential fourth round of stimulus.
They've been talking about it.
We've got to get to the point of the actual recovery, because stimulus is nice, but I think stimulus would have worked if, number one, if it was done consecutively from the point that we were that we first ran into the pandemic. So if it had started in March
right. When we first, you mean when we first started? Go ahead.
Yep.
I get the
March.
I think it's my end.
It's like pixelating right now. Of March 2020, that if it had started then, I'm wondering if from that point, if it was done monthly or if it was done bi-monthly, then you can definitely say, okay, it's making a point. But spreading it out over, let's just say something like doing it in the month of April and then doing it again in the month of September or August, and then turning around the following year, I don't think it's making enough. It's not making the dent that it was supposed to, or it's not making the impact that it was supposed to make.
Well, and yeah, I see what you're saying, Tony. Spreading out over a year, gave him credit, and that's true. That we got something out there, but I think the problem with it was that if they had said a year ago, okay, every 3 months we're going to give you this check, and it's granted the amount that's been given out, I don't know anyone who even maybe the 3 checks combined would have covered more than 2 months rent or mortgage or whatever the case. So
Right.
it depending on situations, but it's something, and it still made a difference, and it helps. um, I think it really needed to be more,
Yeah.
or what conversations I had with other people, and understanding and saying totally that it's not a realistic plan. But if you go back again to say last April, when everything really was hitting the fan, everything was getting shut down.
Mm-hmm.
What really needed to happen was like a 3 month pause, a 3 month lockout of everything,
A
almost to
full
say
lockdown, an
a full
actual
lockdown.
lockdown.
Yes, in other
Rich,
words, and I mean a fiscal lockdown. I'm not saying I mean, sure, we were locked down in our apartments, houses, homes, but I
but
mean a fiscal lockdown. I mean,
Rich, time out for 1
okay,
second.
go ahead.
Were we actually locked down? Was
No,
there anything you couldn't do that you wanted to do?
other than the going out to eat and the social aspect, no.
Right.
But there were so many people who didn't have employment, and so many people who, because they weren't working, because we are some of the fortunate ones, where, like you
Yes.
just said, there was nothing besides social aspects that we couldn't do. We were able to work 40 hours a week. We were able to collect our checks. We were able to do everything that was necessary. And in some cases, we worked more, right?
I think
But there's
so.
also a lot of people who, you know, their businesses, their jobs were, you know, impacted. There should have been, say, almost like a 3 month moratorium. Everything gets locked down. Every account is locked in at whatever it was on April 1st. And you just, everything is, you just, you know, no billing, no back pay, no, nothing's overdue. Again, almost like a reset, or just locking out time for 90 days stops, just to give everyone a chance to get through it. Because, you know, granted, we got out of this within a year. We're getting out of it in about a year. But back then we had no idea. And I mean, I know folks who were severely impacted. I'm sure you do as well.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, the money helps, no question about it. But still, you know, it just it kept people in their homes. And of course, the good things happened, you know, locking down evictions. That's huge. You know, all the money, the money made available to small businesses, you know, for payroll protection. Those are all great things, and all of that helped for sure, because there were been a lot of more people and a lot more businesses that would have failed if it weren't for those things. So hats off to the government for making our money work back for us in that way. Um, but yeah,
Moratoriums
that's
on, you were right. Moratoriums on rent and mortgage was
yep.
key. Was key. I do want to welcome True Armor. He's in the chat section here.
What's up, True?
What's going on, True? What's going on, Danny? Big Tony D. Tony did say yes, they were trying. Agreed, but how do you really impact recovery? How do you start looking at recovery? Because stimulus isn't the way. Stimulus
Right.
is, I mean, we're at what, $27 trillion deficit, right? Maybe
Right.
more. After all these checks from Uncle Joe, we're going to be at 30 trillion. A real recovery for the country. You know, I still think it goes back to the stuff that we've talked about time and time again, where we got to get people trained up. You agree or you disagree?
But it's too late in some cases.
You think it's too late?
Oh no, I agree. We need people trained up. In some cases, it's too late, because now it's not just a situation or a case where we have all the jobs out there available, and people need to be trained up to, you know, get out of whatever they've been doing for the last 50 years in something that's no longer as viable. But now the employment itself isn't there either, because so many companies, so many businesses have gone under. So we're kind of at a catch 22. Yeah, I don't know. Do you done maybe it's looking at something where you can offer retirement to people earlier without penalty, because, you know, if there can't be any employment roles, what are they going to do? Um, yeah, are the jobs out there? Labor market's still not the greatest. You know, let's say things keep going along, and we're getting out of this in 6 months. You're not getting those positions. You know, the real market, that is not coming back anytime soon. The commercial real estate market, especially, no time soon, because this is now what you and I have talked about for years: remote work and the capabilities and abilities to do the job and not necessarily have to be in an office. The rest of the world has just caught up with this, and many, you know, many CEOs are looking at it and saying, hey, if I can save 25-30% of my costs for real estate and rent, and just have my people working from home, and just cover their, you know, their networking, their internet, and get them a laptop to sit there, and they show up somewhere maybe once a week, fine, I'm going to do that. So that's the question now. Do we need, you know, that's how the question is, how business shifts going forward. And that's what we don't know what's going to happen.
So the labor market is on the path to recovery, but it's not a sure thing as the economy reopens. Worker shortages are hitting some businesses, and experts warn of millions of jobs permanently lost. I think are we still at the 9 or 10 million mark? Stimulus hasn't led to a spending surge yet, and Americans may sit on their huge savings pile.
I'm I might have bought a couple of things, but I'm one of those ones that also at one point in my life got unemployed. And it was at a time when all the bills still got to be paid and things changed. So sure, there are a lot of people who were able to get those checks and spend it and go ahead and sit there and buy the 80-inch TV or trip or get work at home. That would be a good way to spend it. But a lot of other people, I know a lot of people who said, I got the check, it's sitting in the bank, I'm not touching it, which I think is the responsible thing to do. It'll become stimulus for the economy later on, but right now it's money sitting in the bank for those who didn't need to spend it. And those who did need to spend it, sure, it didn't act as stimulus there either. It just added as life preserver because that money went straight from the check to the bank to the rent to food to car repairs to childcare to all the things which still have to get done. So it's I've always kind of thought this is nice, but this is kind of more like survival money right now. You want
Hey,
stimulus
Rich,
money? It's all right. You give everyone a big check after this recovery, after we get out of the COVID situation, and then you say, "All right, everyone, here's a check. Go spend it." That's stimulus. That puts money into the economy and makes things get back going.
Rich, you're slightly pixelated, so jump back out and jump back in.
All right, be right back.
And as Rich jumps out and jumps back in, the one point that I'll read from this article is the stimulus spending boost could be smaller than expected. The government acknowledged the risks associated with weak spending and acted on them. The 1.9 trillion stimulus measure approved by President Biden in March was the largest relief package to hit the U.S. economy since the CARES Act was passed in the first months of the pandemic. Americans received support in the form of stimulus checks and bolstered unemployment benefits, two boosts set to supercharge spending and overall demand as the economy reopened. Recent studies suggest that the boost may not be as potent as anticipated. Stimulus checks recipients spent just under 1/4 of the latest relief payments, according to researchers at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. That's less than the share spent from the CARES Act checks or the $600 payments received in January. About 42% of payments were saved, the highest percentage of all three stimulus checks. Though the savings can be unwound over time, they do little to aid the recovery and in the near term. The remainder of the checks is expected to go towards paying down debt.
Now, I didn't read the article, but that's what I said.
Yeah. So that is you hit it head on. You hit it head on with because what I'm hearing is, or what I heard was, and this is just from a small faction, that like some of the millennials who
Mm-hmm.
received their stimulus
Mm-hmm.
were buying socks. I
Well,
mean, what
the
does that do for the economy?
millennials don't buy cars, so
They don't buy
they don't
cars.
buy cars. Unfortunately, a lot are still living at home, or they all live. There's five of them in an apartment made for two, so their rent is also a little less because that's just how it is for them. This is a rough, just a rough time to be going through that stage of life for them, and especially if you're a New Yorker or in a major metropolitan area. But yeah, the money people are going to spend it right now on things they need, or small. I won't call them trivialities, but small little items which make life a little better, quality of life items. But anyone to go out and say, "All right, I'm going to take that check and use it as a down payment for a car," not the time to do that. Not
Right.
yet. We're not out of the. I don't think anyone feels we're comfortably out of the woods yet. Real
Right.
close, but not there yet.
All right. Well, I will tell you this. that. Hold on one second. Just got a text message. I get text messages all the time.
But like we're talking, what am I going to be spending a little of my money on? New networking equipment. Deciding what I'm going to go with. Like I said, I was talking about this before. Am I going to go with doing my research on the mesh systems, or I'll just stay with the traditional router and get a couple of range extenders and go that route? We'll see. But I think my
I'm
router is fine.
telling
So
you, based on your provider, Rich, the absolute best. Contact your provider, which has the modem/router built together
I can't stand those.
and a range extender. That is
I
it.
I don't want them that well. I don't want them having my router. I do too much. I
Right.
got my own DNSs and things like that. No, just give me my
Gotcha.
connection to the
Gotcha.
outside world.
Gotcha. Or, like you said, what I was trying to pitch to you before was buy your own modem. Buy your own modem, buy your own
Yep.
router. Save the $7 charge, the monthly charge on it,
Yep.
because we're you're leasing that and still continue to do what you're going to do. But
Yeah.
one thing I will mention is, and we didn't, no, we kind of discussed this in pre-pro. The next subject is, the one thing, what I, the one thing I want to do is I want to get one of those grills. I forgot what it's called. Oh my goodness. It's
The
kind of
pellet
gives
the
you
pellet
like
grills?
say it again.
The pellet grills?
I think so. It's the flat top.
Oh yeah, there's like they have one of those as well. Yes. I know what you're talking about. I had done a little bit of I think last time you mentioned it, maybe a
Yeah.
couple of months ago,
Yeah.
I had
I
looked
haven't
at it.
pulled the trigger on it. I want one of those. And I was talking with a friend today, and I said, you know what? What I usually do in my household is, once I nail down what I want for Father's Day, print out a
Mm-hmm.
picture, leave it on the refrigerator. Never fails.
Oh,
Never
that's a good idea.
fails. Leave it right on the refrigerator and go, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So when
Oh,
they
what's that? Mm.
ask, what do you want for Father's Day, you kind of just right
Look
there.
at the fridge. Walk over to the fridge, get some cold water. Ah, just
You
stand there
know,
in front of the picture.
there you go. There you go. What was I gonna say? In pre-pro, we were talking
Pre-pro,
about,
there it is.
there it is. In pre-pro, we were talking about, what are you watching? And I asked you about Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
And I am only on. I finished episode 2. I have not seen 3 or 4. And you've been telling me that 3 was good and 4 is off the chain.
3 was good. The way episode 3 ended, you were like, uh-oh, here we go. Episode 4 was a mini Marvel movie.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
It's a mini
How many
Marvel movie.
episodes? How many episodes is this supposed to be?
6 total.
Ah, okay.
And supposedly episode 5, which is coming out this Friday,
Mm-hmm.
3 o'clock in the morning, supposedly runtime is 61 minutes.
Wow.
So it's going to, I guess the last 2 episodes are going to be action packed. Not only that, but they're extending the runtime a little bit, because this one was like maybe 51 minutes.
Okay.
So you get an extra 10 minutes. Factor in, for them to run the credits is going to be about, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes. But
So I have something to watch tonight after the show. 2 episodes.
yes, definitely. You gotta, I mean, John Walker is as advertised.
Okay. He
Um,
is. Because I mean, second episode, you're not sure about him. He seems a little sketchy, and of course, that's all I've seen. So no further comment.
and you just see the overall evolution of John Walker.
Right. Okay. All right.
Uh,
Good. Let's see what happens.
Um,
And you didn't say for good or bad. You just said the evolution. So
The
let's see what happens.
evolution. I'll leave it there.
Yes.
I don't want to spoil
Yes.
it for
Nope.
you.
Yep.
Now, if I was spoiling it for everyone else, that'd be something else. But that and Fear the Walking Dead is back. That's another one of my. I like Fear the Walking Dead even more than The Walking Dead.
Walking Dead. So, well, no, there's no spoilers here. So, like I said, I'm maybe 6 or 7 episodes behind on Walking Dead
Okay.
because I know I got you into that. Got you to
You
start
got me
watching it.
into that.
Yes, and then I stopped because the whispers. I was at when the whispers were introduced, and I know they're part of the comic and a major storyline. But I was getting to the point where, okay, enough already. Let's just get this over with. I was tired of things with the whisperers.
We're
That storyline is dead. I know we're into the next. We got the flowers, and that's where I'm at. I'm like maybe 2 episodes after we met the young lady who was really one of the flowers, and going in from there. So I think that's about 7 episodes behind.
okay. Okay. Um. So, Fear the Walking Dead. It's had a couple of lives.
Yep.
But I like this iteration of Fear the Walking Dead. Like when the show first started, like the first couple of seasons was great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then they started killing off major characters, which shows tend to do that more and more nowadays. And I don't know if they're doing that for economic reasons or story arcs come to a close, but it's a lot quicker. So once they got through killing off major characters, there was so the show has been like rebooted like twice.
Right.
So now we have Morgan from The Walking Dead has transitioned over to Fear the Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And the show is pretty good. As I said to you before, this season is anthology style. So, and I don't know if it was originally planned for that, but it's great because each episode only had a few characters and it focused on like one specific character. But if you noticed, with The Walking Dead, the bonus episodes that were made available, they did it for COVID reasons.
Right.
So one was done for that specific reason, but the way Fear the Walking Dead is telling the story, everyone gets their own episode.
Okay. All right. And it's from the episodes from their perspective, or
It's
it's
from
just
their
focusing
perspective.
on them. Okay. All right.
It's from their perspective. So
it's overlapping time. So you got the same timeline basically, but multiple iterations.
Yes.
Got it.
It's the same story, but it's told 5-6 different ways.
Okay.
So kind of like Vantage Point. Kind of like Vantage Point, the movie.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of a different movie. Think of an old Vanishing Point movie from the 70s.
Oh no, Vantage, VANTAGE.
Oh, Vantage Point. Vantage Point.
Yeah,
okay, there was
Vantage Point. Kind of something like that. It's like I said, I like it. I like it a lot, and there's been a lot of twists and turns this season.
Good. I mean, that's not like you said. They've rebooted that show about 3 times now.
Yes,
and but it always does seem that when it's done, it makes the show better.
Yes,
so
that is
can't
true.
complain about it. And maybe that's a good way to look at it. Let's rebuild the show, remake the show every 3 or 4 seasons, keep it fresh. It does look like there's still some characters who have been there from the beginning, even though there's very few, but they're still there. You got your core, and keep it moving. And I think that's kind of what they needed, and they've done it once majorly, right? With Walking Dead, with the 6-year jump after Rick. But maybe that's what they need to start doing with Walking Dead as well. Or I heard, and I wasn't able to follow up, but that they're on their end game. That they know what season's going to be over, and that'll be it. So I think it's time.
Yeah, they're on their end game. Outside of that, I didn't watch any more of Invincible.
No, neither did I.
I didn't watch any more of that, but like I said, really good show. And they're releasing it week by week. So I don't know if this is something new with Amazon.
Maybe
They're
it's a
trying to give you a
test. I don't
longer
know.
burn.
Right, right. Instead of you getting there, well, that's I can see the Amazon execs, especially the advertising and the number crunchers, saying, we kind of lose out on advertising possibilities if we just dump it all at one shot,
Right.
because you want to drag things out a little bit. You want to keep people coming back for more and more over a longer period of time. Instead of what we do, we binge. We go find something else to binge, and it may or may not be on the same platform. You might go from Amazon to Netflix for another show, to Amazon to Hulu to pick another one. So it's kind of, I do like it when they release, say it's a 10 episode series. I like, give me 3 or 4 up front and then release the rest on a regular basis. I think that's a good compromise. It gets you
Okay.
in, it gets you hooked. You get a good taste of it, a good feel for it up front, and then all right, I got to wait a few weeks to see it in a standard serial format.
What else do we have? Dude, tell me why the political football of vaccines is just getting uglier and uglier and uglier.
It's a symptom of kind of what we were discussing earlier in the political side of things. It's just a symptom of the information, for whatever reason, not being believed, being disseminated by people who aren't qualified to disseminate it, and they're just talking out the sides of their heads. If it's very simple, and it's, for whatever reason, the lack of trust in science, which is something I just do not understand. But I mean, let's face it, if you want to get information about the vaccines, where does it make sense to go? I think the CDC is like the first place you should look. I know it's the government, and if you have distrust of government, you're not going to trust them, but it's science. Go to the CDC. You can get the true information from there. You can go to the World Health Organization. That's the next best place to go, because they're coordinating all this over the planet. They've got all the information on the vaccines, on and the cases of who's got side effects. They've got all the information there. What's safe, the recommendations. It's all there. And then there's another location I'm not familiar with, but why not? The Immunization Action Coalition. I think this is one you mentioned. Do you know anything about them?
The Immunization Action Coalition. I do not. I just know they've been around for a trusted source for more than 20 years.
Right. And then what instead of even going that far out to all these national, international organizations, go to your doctor. Ask your doctor what they think, and I don't think any doctor is going to say no, don't get it. And if they do, there may be a valid reason. But I go to your doctor. Just go. Don't just talk. Don't just listen to me and Ted. Don't just go down the block. We're not going to steer you wrong, but go to a knowledgeable source that you
What about
trust.
academic institutions? I mean, academic institutions or universities or hospitals.
Sure, absolutely. Go. I mean, go to the hospitals. Call the hospital and ask them. Even though they're going to tell you talk to your doctor, and they're going to redirect you to one of the ones we've already mentioned, most likely. But go to anywhere that has information that has been vetted, tested, that is trustworthy. Not just saying, oh, because so and so said that you're going to get hairy palms if you get the vaccine. I mean,
What about? I'm looking for reputable information about, my kid getting a vaccination. Many of these sources, like the CDC and World Health Organization, have been doing this, and talking about kids and adults. But what are some resources that parents can, rely on specifically
well,
for kids?
for kids, so no, the American Academy of Pediatrics has a site, healthychildren.org. That's a good place to go to get, again, valid, trustworthy information. The websites of some of the children's hospitals. Let's see, there's Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, Boston's Children's Hospital, the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. All these locations are valid sites that you can go to. And there's one other site where you can get more information, uh, www.immunize.org.
Ah,
That is another location to get valid, and that's immunization info, not just for children, but for adults as well. But that's all, that's all encompassing, and it's not just COVID related. It's all immunizations. These are all places you can go to get information for yourself and for your children.
so what makes trusted websites different from other websites?
I didn't write it. You didn't write it. Real medical experts contribute and write this information. That's what makes the difference. They are written by doctors. They are written by scientists. Their information is compiled from people who this is what they do. They are scientists and doctors and knowledgeable people on the subject matter.
What's the easiest way to spot false information, aka fake news, about about vaccines?
Who wrote it? Who's listed as the author of the article? What are their credentials? And this is a big one, is a reference to other valid sources in their article. Anyone could say, I said this because I read it over, I said this on my site because I read it on Joe's website, and Joe's
Right.
website said it was on my website. Especially if there's no clear author, then that's a red flag. Or there's no obvious credentials. If this person isn't truly an MD, PhD, or has scientific credentials, that would be suspect. And again, no research studies are referenced. Every scientist and will reference previous information, investigation, resources, experimentation. That's all going to be referenced in a true article. Because again, nothing happens in a vacuum. So they all point back and forth to each other's work to validate what another has done and what another says.
Rich, what are some red flags to watch out for when researching vaccines?
Well, let's see. You want to look at the type of website you're looking at. Of course, I mean, we know these things, but if it's got a .edu after it, that means it's an academic institution like a university. .gov on the website means it's a government website. .org on it means that it belongs to a nonprofit organization. And .com, of course, means it's from a for-profit company. So, if it just ends with .us, .tv, .ly,
Uh-huh.
let's see look and see just where the information is being posted and hosted from. And same thing, if it's just on Facebook, it's not necessarily legit. If it's just on Twitter, if you see a post on Twitter from someone, it doesn't mean anything. Do some, like anything else, research. Do some valid research. Don't just take anything you read just sight unseen for granted.
So, as you mentioned before, red flags are there's no obvious author, meaning the author is guessed.
Mm-hmm.
The author does not have valid credentials, as you mentioned. The author or organization appear to have a conflict of interest or is one-sided. The information is not updated with the latest news or evidence. There is no scientific evidence listed. The information contains spelling errors.
If I
Key
see it,
thing to watch. You see a
spelling
ton of
errors.
errors. Maybe
Yes.
that's not the site that you should be referencing when you're talking to your friends on the phone about, hey, this is a valid site that, this site reported blah, 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 blah.
Right. For us, that's common sense. And it's funny, but the spelling errors thing is one of the first things that pops up. And this isn't just on researching vaccines. This is any kind of spam phishing email. You see a spelling error, right away it's not legitimate.
Right. That's true. I guess what can I do if the information I have doesn't agree with what the trusted organization says?
Well, again, look and see what you're reading. Look a little more carefully at what it says, and then figure out. Ask yourself, well, what's different about the information from what my site says versus the trusted site? And does this, again, going back to referencing? Does my site back up their information with credible, verifiable, and that's the key word, verifiable evidence? Because if they just say something and there's no proof behind it, no evidence behind it, no fact checking behind it, then it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So if you got an issue with, if you ask yourself these questions, then you might want to take a look a little bit more at the secondary site and see, well, why is it that they may want to present some sort of biased opinion?
How can I talk to my family about vaccines if they are skeptical?
Well, everyone I think knows someone who's skeptical for one reason or another. Um, so, like any conversation, you know, both sides always need to hear each other out. So, hear them out, hear what they have to say, and going back to the previous points, well, ask them what evidence. All right, you think this is the case? Show me what evidence do you have that makes you feel that you to be hesitant about it, and then teach them. All right, well, this is how you can compare what websites are valid, what websites may not be valid, what information may be valid, what information may not have been researched and vetted, and then let them compare their sources with whatever sources you may be able to provide. And if they still look at it and they're still unsure after all that, have them talk to say, maybe you should talk to your doctor or a trusted healthcare professional. There will be some people who maybe just don't understand it, and once they see evidence, pointing in another direction, will will realize, oh, okay, I get it now. Maybe I don't need to worry about it. And then maybe others who will just say, no, I don't care. Maybe my doctor, and that goes back to what we said before. Go talk to your doctor. I don't think any doctor is going to recommend against, no, don't get the vaccine at this point.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line. Is just there's so much misinformation, not just on the internet, on cable news too.
Right, right,
Because depending on the time that you watch your favorite show on cable news, you have to figure out, is it from a journalist or is it basically, I hate to say it, it's an opinion show.
right. And you're right. And that's one of those things, beyond COVID, beyond vaccinations, just in general. Never embed yourself in one line of thought. Sure, I look at Fox, I look at MSNBC, look at Al Jazeera, look at BBC. Look at news which will be presented from both sides of whatever spectrums you're on, just to get balanced, truly balanced information. Because there's always going to be a case that one side will find something that the other side doesn't say, and vice versa. So get your information from all sources. Don't just focus on one line of thought.
Before we close out, I will do the research. I saw a disturbing video of, um, I guess this person is currently serving in the military.
Mm-hmm.
It was a black gentleman, and he was either pulled out of his car and maced and by the police. I don't have all the information on it, but I want to come back. I don't know if you have the information on that.
No, I've got no more on that either. I know about it.
Yeah.
Pretty much what you said. I don't know any more at this point. I want to hear the stories, but on the same token, we've seen too many situations like this.
Right.
Um, no excuses. Don't care. No excuses. Have you been following the Derek Chauvin trial?
I have. I have. Not closely. Um, we have a few. Um, we have a few people that I've watched their broadcast on HAPS TV
Mm-hmm.
that have given like daily summaries on it, and it's like a pain in your stomach
Yeah.
when it's like, yeah, I know we all have to watch it, I know we all have to be aware and everything else like that, but that recording playing over and over and over and looping, and now with the defense coming up, to support their side of the case, of, he died due to health reasons, or them showing a video and saying, well, it looks like his knee is actually in his shoulder blade and not on his neck. Is
yeah,
it's painful.
It is. I have not been actively watching or following. It's kind of
On
same as
purpose?
you, getting snippets, kind of, because one, I nothing that we do or say is going to make a difference with the outcome, whatever way it
Right.
goes. And I've already made up my mind as far as the case. And this would be a case of, okay, show me real evidence, because no, you can't tell me his knee is on his shoulder blade when you can see his knee on his neck and his foot's off the ground, so his entire body weight's on his neck.
Yeah.
So it's from a legal aspect, sure, it would be interesting to watch, and like any major case, looking at how the defense plays off against the prosecuting attorney. Um, that's just interesting, but I haven't been watching the day to days either. I've been getting my snippets here and there as I browse the channels. So
yeah, it's you kind of just want to hear the verdict,
right.
and I don't know if that's the type of society we live in now, where okay, we know the case, no need to litigate it. We want to hear what the verdict is going to be.
Everyone is due their day in court, so we have
Yes,
to be fair about it.
truthful. Um, I think that's going to wrap it. I know we started a little late tonight, but that was my bad. Anything exciting you got planned for this week? Suffolk is basically open, right?
Pretty much. I mean, we're getting less and less, more and more percentages. As far as occupancy, restaurants are open. It seems like there's a little less, outdoor dining. People are able to move in.
Right.
Town, down in Huntington Town, it's picking up, especially the last couple of weeks. It's been good to see people out and enjoying themselves. You can tell everyone just was tired and pent
They've
up and needed
had
to get
enough.
out. Yeah, so it's good to see. And people, they're following the rules as have been given. Masks when they're walking around, and when they sit down to eat, take the masks off, and that's fine. That's the rule. That's the rule.
I saw some of the outdoor dining being dismantled in downtown Manhattan.
Nice.
I saw some of that stuff being dismantled.
And we're getting back to normalcy, bit by bit.
Hey, so I want to thank Danny, Tony, and True, and everyone else who showed up in the chat. Thanks to Ian Duff for subscribing. And I think that's about it. What's the best ways to get in contact with you, Rich?
On the Twitters, Late Night Rich.
And I am the real Ted Hicks, and we are